All right. So welcome to Innovate BC. You've joined today. It's the last day of March. Can we believe it? Like April is here tomorrow. Wow. So I hope wherever you are that you are well, you feel good. You're just loving this new season of spring Creator has gifted us with. I just hope you are at peace with where you're at. We just want to take a moment and acknowledge Creator and all of the gifts and all of the goodness that has been given to us. And, being able to meet here on this virtual place, this virtual platform, to be able to learn and take in knowledge, I think has been such a great gift in the last 2 years. So we're honored that you have joined us. We're excited for our guest speaker, Teresa. Really important topic. So we just want to say and give thanks to Creator, to all of you, to community. We give thanks for the gift of Mother Earth and land. Because of her, we are able to survive and thrive and just do what we hold true to in our hearts, the passion and the calling Creator has given to us. So all of these good things in our lives, we just give thanks for. So in our webinars, so with CANDO, it's Innovate BC on Wednesdays, and on Tuesdays, it's Links to Learning. And we have such great presenters and such great workshops. And usually, there's conversation around funding, right? And is there any dollars out there that we can access? And I think that that's really important, to be able to do some of the work we do. But before we can access those dollars, we got to know how to write those grants. We got to know, what to put in those proposals. And that's what today is about. So it's my honor to introduce our guest speaker, Teresa. She is an Indigenous knowledge keeper with an ancestral background of both Kainai and Cree nations. Her career has included executive assistant at the Alberta Friendship Centre Association, where she was implemental in organizing the first annual Youth and Elders Gathering, which is like so awesome. As well, Teresa has lived and taught in Indigenous communities as far south as Tsuut'ina and as far north as Fox Lake. I don't think I've ever been to Fox Lake. As well as teaching courses for Grande Prairie Regional College and the Humanities and Business departments. She has facilitated entrepreneur and youth Connect programs in partnership with Alberta Child and Family Services, Alberta Education, Indigenous Community for Leadership and Development, and the FSJ Aboriginal Business Center, including she also owns her own business. And she also, to add on to all of that, she's an award-winning author. Wow. So we're in great company today. So today's webinar is Fundamentals of Grant Writing. So we are really looking forward to having you share with us today, Teresa. I think grant writing, proposal writing, is part of like our organizations and always connecting to those dollars so that we could do the good work that we do. So I think that this session is really, really important. So you're going to cover finding the right grant, what funding sources will be asking you, tools used for grant writing, writing your grant story to get a yes. So we just are really honored that you are here to facilitate this really important workshop. So I'm going to pass over the reins to you. Just to FYI to everybody, I know there's going to be some questions along the way. Feel free to use that chat box, put them in the chat box. I will make note of them. And then there will be time afterwards to have a Q&A or comments, or maybe you want to share a quick story. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Teresa. I'm going to set up the PowerPoint and then we're ready to go.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate your wonderful and very generous compliments. Blush, blush, right? Yeah, thank you. I always like to start with an acknowledgement of the First Nations, the Métis, and the Inuit who have lived and cared for the lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and the elders who are still with us today, and who those of who have gone before us. I see there are many of you here. We've got quite a handful, and I always want to know a little bit about everybody. Now, Michelle has pretty much given you my life story, and I really appreciate that very much. So if we could just take a minute, and if everybody could just tell me where you are, like say hello to everybody and tell me where you are, and maybe a little bit about what you do. Is that okay? Could we start with, is it Yves? Yves Noel? Maybe Yves has just jumped off the chair for a second. How about Garen? Garen Blaise, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. My name is Garen Blais. I am Director of Business Development for Gestion ABC, based out of Laval, Quebec. We are 100% Cree-owned organization, one of the larger part of the Cree Co, which is the Cree Regional and Economic Companies, series of companies, so a direct branch of the Cree Nation government. And my job is to look at opportunities that involve creation of wealth for the Cree communities.
Well, fantastic. How long have you been doing that, Garen?
About 3 years now.
Great. Wow. I hope we can be very helpful for you today. Yeah.
I think you will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Elsie, did you want to say hello?
Sure. My name is Elsie. I'm part of CANDO's special projects team, and I'm here in Edmonton.
Wonderful. Yves, are you back there? Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. Yves? I'm not always the best at names. Okay, we'll just move on. Lorraine, would you like to say hello? Lorraine Fiddler?
Hey everybody, I'm excited to be here and learn more about grant writing and how to write them successfully. My name's Lorraine Fiddler. I'm based out in Calgary, Alberta, and I wear a couple hats. I'm more like on the entrepreneurial side. However, I do have a couple contracts with different organizations. I work with the operations for a company called the Taiga, and I'm also an Indigenous Community engagement manager for the Connect Partnership Group. And yeah, that's me.
Oh, great. That must keep you very busy.
It is. It's very exciting. Some of the things that I'm working towards. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Shannon, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Shannon Smith. I'm the business analyst for Stalo Community Futures. We operate from the Selk'natook Stalo Traditional Territory in the Fraser Valley in BC. I'm the business analyst that works with a lot of our Indigenous entrepreneurs. So we ourselves are a nonprofit that are always seeking funding and having to write grants. But we also guide our entrepreneurs when there's programs available and helping them to develop their business plans so that when these opportunities come up, they've got some information prepared, because some of the deadlines are really quick. We've noticed for some of the programs that we're encouraging them to apply for. So I'm really looking forward to this today.
Good. Yes, I've also done the same. I've been in the same shoes as you, and it's always wonderful when you help somebody to become an entrepreneur on their own. It's just fantastic. Yeah. Thank you. Vivian.
Hi, I'm coming in from Grand Cache, Alberta. I have my own little company that I started up last year, so slowly getting things started, and I thought this would fit in nicely with some of my planning, and see if there's any funding out there that, well, there is funding out there. I just got to make sure that I write a successful grant so that I can get the money.
Right, Grand Cache, a beautiful area. Wonderful. Let's see, who else do we have here? There is Connie.
Good afternoon. Sorry for joining late. Joining you from Southern BC, working with the community of Pond Inlet up in Nunavut. I can't talk this afternoon.
That's okay. Great. And Zen.
Yes, I'm here from Ontario. I'm here to encourage more Indigenous to take on contracts with Canada Post in transportation, trucking, vans, various vehicles to move mail and parcels for Canada Post and take on contracts.
Well, that's neat. Yeah. And I'm going to try Yves again. Okay. And is there anyone I missed? Please say hello now, if you can. Mel. Yeah.
Yes, it's Mel Morassi. I'm not sure how Mary showed up there. I'm from Peter Valentine Cree Nation, northeastern Saskatchewan, and I work with several communities. I'm a economic development officer, and I'm hoping to pick up some tips. Thank you.
Good. Well, I am so thrilled that there's so many of you from different areas of Canada and different professions. This is really exciting. Like, can you imagine if we were all in the same room right now, all the strategic planning we could be doing? Woohoo! Just excellent, excellent stuff. Thank you very much for everybody for sharing with us who you are. Hopefully some of you could go to the chat and maybe you just were introduced to somebody who you thought, oh, I'd like to talk to that person. So feel free to use the chat to talk to each other when you can. So we did do the land acknowledgement already. So there's a lovely picture to go with it. And that's me, hello, with shorter hair. Actually, there's a story behind that. I am in a band as well. And that was for the Cancer Walk. So I just had my hair cut for the Cancer Walk right before that. Usually my hair is quite long. So yeah, you can keep going with the slides. Yeah, so that's our welcome for everybody to introduce themselves. And so as you can see, I'm not the controller of the slides. So go ahead, you can go to the next one. Okay, so this is where we get started. This is basically the agenda of the session today. And I do realize that some of you, from what you're saying, do have some grant experience, which is great. So if you feel that you also have a tip or anything, feel free to share it in the chat and we will talk about it. So basically the agenda, of course, is who the workshop is for. What is a grant, of course, what goes into a grant, grant research and resources. I'll be sharing a lot of those with you today. And before writing the grant, what should you be doing? What should you be thinking about? What should you be preparing? As well as the grant sections. So we'll give a definition of each section. And I'll also have a sample for you, which is from the Boys and Girls Clubs. And I've been involved with them a long time ago, and they are always going for grants and always getting their grants. So they have a very good template to use, which is a wonderful example, as well as best practices. And then we'll summarize what we learned. And then of course, there will be a time for questions and answers. And then of course, our closing. So why don't we just move on to the next stop? Who is this workshop for? So basically it's anyone who wants to learn the fundamentals of a grant and its steps. And as I heard, some of you already seem to have some knowledge about that. So that is wonderful. And for the next step is, of course, what is a grant? Again, this is for those of you who are just getting your feet wet for grant writing. If you're new in your job, or like one of you said, you're starting a business and you're interested in looking into grants. So basically, a grant is a presentation on paper, and it's a story. It's your chance to tell a story in an enthusiastic and compelling way. That's when you send it out, the people that can fund you are going to go, hey, this is great. We want to be part of this, right? So that's basically what it's for. And of course, it can be for all kinds of projects and initiatives. And later on, I am going to share the type of grants that are out there here in Canada that are the most common, right? And then moving right along, basically, what goes into a grant? Now, this is obviously very simple. Everybody comes up with an idea, right? I come up with ideas all the time. I don't know how many of you have read the Alice in Wonderland, where one of the characters says, I come up with 3 ideas before breakfast, right? That's kind of like me. Usually it's when I'm going to bed, right? How many of you are like that? Just give a little yay with your emojicons if you can. The reactions are on the bottom of the bar there. And if you are the kind of person who's, least expect it, you're in the shower, you're in bed, just relaxing, all of a sudden this cool idea comes to you. I actually have a little book with my ideas, and I really hope someday that I can accomplish a lot of my ideas. I'm very grateful that I do get to do a lot of things I want to do. And one of my secrets to that, of course, is just do it, right? So once you have an idea, you've written it down on your napkin or a piece of paper, then it's time to plan, right? Yeah, ideas are great, but you have to plan. What are you going to do? How are you going to make this idea come to light, become a reality? So that's the next step, of course. And then, of course, we have strategies. Strategies is the more professional way of saying, this is the way we're going to operate. This is the way we're going to fund. This is how we're going to staff. This is the materials we need. This is the way we're going to do the plan. And then, of course, determining success. You can have a grant, but you also have to realize that part of your grant is evaluating. And that, of course, starts right in the piece of paper with the grant proposal. Okay, so you have to figure out a way to evaluate and include that as part of your grant proposal. So is that making sense so far, I hope? Okay, so we have for you finding the right grant for you. So this could be the next slide. There are many resources out there, and in Canada, you name it. These are some of the topics you can think of: agriculture, arts, culture, sport, business, environment, many for Indigenous peoples. Gender equality is a big one right now. Health, of course, is big. International development. If you are setting up programs to help others find jobs or apprenticeship training. As a matter of fact, I am just coming out of doing that myself with a Youth Connect program, where I am thrilled to have the opportunity to help young Indigenous youth start off their careers and get them into school. So of course, we did that all with grants. And then, of course, there could be, what are you doing if you leave your work? You're planning your pensions. Did you know there's grants for that? Wow, hey, that's a surprise for some of you, I hope. I hope you're not too old to think that far yet down the road. Of course, there's grants if you want to do just research. And of course, there's grants for student aid. Now, you might notice just above this table, it says www.canada.ca. If you could double click on that and open that up, you will see that there are plenty of grants. Now, this is from the Canada grant site. Is there anyone who can't see that? So what you should have come to is a white page. It says at the top, Government of Canada. And then it says grants and funding from the Government of Canada. Below that, it says, what type of funding are you looking for? And then, of course, you have a list of wonderful topics to choose from. Now, let's choose for Indigenous peoples. So you just click the circle, and then you press continue. And what you should see is funding for Indigenous peoples. And there's about 9 sections here. Services and information. So for example, if you can't see it, I'm just going to read these out for you. One says Indigenous Services Canada funding programs. When you open that up, you're going to see a slew of opportunities. The next one says Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada's funding programs. There's another section for cultural funding programs, Indigenous arts grants, especially through the Canada Council of the Arts. They have wonderful grants for emerging artists. and organizations that want to do art projects, the Indigenous Court Work Program, the Indigenous Justice Program, Community-Based Justice Fund, the Indigenous Justice Program, where there's capacity building, the funding for First Nation Inuit policy facilities, empowering Indigenous women for stronger communities, Indigenous research funding for Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, the Justice Partnership and Innovation Program, and the Indigenous Climate Funding. Now, so now you know about this site. I'm not going to go any further than that to open it up. Like I said, hopefully you can open it up as you're watching this. But if you can't, just write down www.canada.ca, and then you'll just have to Google government grants/funding. And you should be able to get onto this page. It's very user-friendly, very easy to follow. Any comments about that? Oh, I see we have a couple of chats, so I'm just going to check that. Oh, great, great. Yes, somebody is sharing. Elsie, thank you so much for sharing that. That's wonderful. And Lorraine, the link to the chat, you managed to get that? Good, good, good. Thank you. Okay, we got it. Great. So yes, when you're on your own, do take the time to go through these and search through what might work for you. Of course, the first step in any idea you have is to go out and research what's out there, right? So in the next slide, I have another link that I wanted to share with you. And this one is specifically for Alberta. Okay, so excuse me, as you can kind of tell, I expected that there'd be most of the people in this session would be from Alberta. But of course, you can do the same thing if you're in Ontario, Quebec, anywhere else in BC, and check out their sites as well, right? So the one for Alberta, of course, is www.alberta.ca, and then it says Economic Development Funding Grants. Right? And when you click into this, you get, of course, Aboriginal business investment funds for agriculture, for community resilience, for export. Coal expansion right now is something that the Alberta Conservatives are into. Community and regional economic supports, which is a CARES program. Community initiatives programs, employment partnerships, innovative employment grants, municipal stimulus program, and the residential schools community research grant. When you click into this one specifically for the Alberta one, you'll end up with a blue page, and it will say economic development funding and grants. But if you just peek right above that, you will see where it says community and economic development. And when you click on that, what you should get is where it says Indigenous grants, specifically for First Nations, Métis, and of course, Inuit in Alberta. And then you can, of course, click on that, and it goes to Aboriginal Business Investment Fund, employment partnerships, residential school community research grants, and so on, right? So again, this is specific for Alberta, but of course, you can find the same thing in each province. I'm just giving you a minute to take a peek at that if you need to. Anybody have any questions or thoughts about any of these? Okay, well, hopefully you're having an opportunity to explore these. Again, just copy and paste the links, or open up the links and hold them as a tab on your own computer. And then later on after this session, you can explore those further, right? Okay, so that's basically the government grants, but of course there are partnerships. There's corporations that have grants opportunities as well, and they're quite numerous. You name it, you can find something. For example, if I just said Shell Canada, right? They have grants, right? If you also go to any foundations, there are tons of foundations that you can go to as well. And the easiest way to find those, honestly, the way I find them is I just Google. I Googled the other day, actually, you can even try this right now. Just Google community kitchens grants, because somebody asked me to write a program for their organization for community kitchens. So that's the first thing I did. I Googled community kitchens grants, and I'll tell you, the Google opened up all kinds of opportunities for grants and funding, right? So Google is a friend, it really is, right? So do take advantage of that. Okay, so let's move on then. So before you write the grant, what should you be doing? So that is our next slide, slide 11. And so here you can see there's some steps. Now I'll talk a little bit more about these steps. So first of all, step 1, ensure your project or initiative meets the criteria to be fundable. So this is where you have to research grants first. And you have to read what they are expecting in your grant proposal. You will save yourself a lot of time just by doing some research. Once you find a grant that sounds like it might work for you, definitely go through their criteria, right? And ask yourself, is this grant for me? So in other words, is it doable? Is your plan doable, right? If you want to, I'm going to do a crazy little thought right off the top of my head. How about starting a sanctuary for ants? Okay, that's quite undoable. Let's face it. Yeah, that's not going to happen, right? But that's extreme, of course. So make sure your plan is doable. And where it says, does it have a beginning, a middle, and an end? What I'm trying to tell you there is, again, you have to engage the person who is reading your proposal. If you have a storyteller on staff, or you have that ability to tell a good story, go for it. Tell it like a story. Bring some emotion into your proposal. Talk about your clients and what they're going through, what their needs are, right? Or even if it's for yourself, for your own self-business, talk about your background. What inspired you? What motivated you to get to that point in your life where you are now looking for a grant to expand your program or your business? So that's what I mean with a beginning, a middle, and end. All good stories have that as the main part of a story, right? And the next part is, does it have a focused goal? A lot of people get these wonderful, crazy ideas and they don't think them out first. So of course you have to do that for yourself. Be realistic. It might be a really awesome idea, right? For example, maybe you want to start an all Indigenous NHL team. Well, that is pretty cool. I think that's a cool idea. However, is it really doable? We have some wonderful Indigenous athletes. You have to kind of go then into NHL and look at their criteria. And then do you really want to bypass somebody, for example, from Sweden, who's a wonderful hockey player, just because that person's not Indigenous, right? That, again, that's an extreme example. But it, again, is focus on the goal and decide, is it realistic, right? Again, next is it in alignment with your organization's mission and goals and the funder's goals? Now, of course, if you are a certified nonprofit organization, a certified business, licensed business, you name it, of course, you have a mission statement. And that has to, whatever plan you are doing has to fit with that. For example, I mentioned the Boys and Girls Club. Now, of course, they cater to youth, children and youth. So you wouldn't all of a sudden decide, well, let's start a physical activity program for seniors. That does not fit your organization's criteria or the mission, right? So again, be realistic. And next, does your project have concrete, tangible, and measurable objectives? Now, we are going to talk about this a little more. Hopefully, a lot of you have heard about SMART, the acronym. If you don't know what that is, stay tuned. It's coming up and I'll explain that to you. All right. So basically, that's the things you have to think about for step 1. Look, there's a step 2. Read the application guidelines. Again, get your highlighter out. That's what I do. I highlight. And then I decide, will this work? Will this work? Will that work? No, it won't work. It's okay if you found a grant that you go, nah, actually, maybe that doesn't work for us after all. Keep researching, keep looking. Is your organization able to provide all that is needed to complete the applications? For example, do you have the room to do the program you want? Do you have the staff? Do you have the materials, and so on and so on? As well, can you meet the deadline? I already heard someone mention there's deadlines coming up. And yeah, there's certain times of the year where there are deadlines. I'm going to give you a little tip on how to not miss deadlines and how to prepare for deadlines. Okay, next, please. And, oh, well, look at that. We went from step 2 to step 4. Did I miss something? Ensure your eligibility. And of course, develop a checklist. While you're reading through the grant criteria, create a checklist, or just even with a pencil, check it off as you go through the grant criteria. Next, please. And of course, schedule time management, so you know that you have enough time to complete the application before the deadline. I have a partner right now who has all kinds of things on her plate. She doesn't have time to start searching for grants. So that's where I come in, right? Oh, I'll do that for you. Ka-ching, pay me, of course. And then, of course, that person has the relief of knowing that I can meet the deadlines for those grants. If you are very busy, you might have to wait till next year or look for a grant that's maybe in September or something like that. Next slide, please. And this is what I was talking about for scheduling. If you go online, you can find and download grant schedules. And this is just a sample. What it shows is basically the months of the year, and then funder. Who is it that you are looking at to apply to? What are their deadlines? What is the focus of the application? What is the amount of the grant? For example, the Woodcock Foundation is $8,000. And then, of course, any notes that you want to write. If you do this before your fiscal year starts, you will be ahead of the game. Put this schedule somewhere where you can see it. Put it in your calendar, give yourself a little reminder alerts. Oh, it's almost April and we want to write a grant that deadline's in June. That gives you enough time to get a grant going, right? So if you do this ahead of time and you research all the grants that you want for your organization and you put it on a calendar, then you know exactly what to look for every single year. And of course, at the end of the year, go back and research, because we know that some foundations, some grant organizations disappear and others appear, right? So make sure you're always updating that when you can. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are some common sections for grants. And what I want to do is basically, this is just a summary of it, but the next page is we're going to open up a template and hopefully we can walk everybody through that. So the basics of a grant proposal includes a very nice title page, the table of contents, your executive summary, the organizational background, the statement of need, the program implementation and measurement, a budget and plan for sustainability, marketing and publicity plan, the closing, and the appendix. So some of you, of course, may know what some of this already includes. So before we go to the template, I'll explain a few of these. So first of all, of course, always follow the instructions of the grant. I can't tell you that enough, right? So often a grant will start with instructions for completing their grant application. So make sure you're following those to the T. Fill all those blanks in, right? The vitals, of course, there will be a page where you include your information, who you are, that sort of thing, who your organization is. The cover letter, a lot of people start with a cover letter, and that basically introduces who you are, your organization, and your purpose for submitting the grant application. Of course, then there's a table of contents where each page of your grant proposal will be titled, each section, and with a page. So if the funders want to turn to, let's say, your budget, they know exactly what page it's on, right? Now, the executive summary is a concise, it's an objective synopsis of your proposed grant application. So it is exactly who you are, what you do, what you want to do. It should be persuasive and energizing. This is where you're telling your story, right? It's responsive to the funding opportunity and the funder's mission statement, okay? And then, of course, your statement of need. Organizational background, sorry. That one is, they want to know about your organization, right? Who you are. Of course, you have websites. So any information from your website will more than likely go there. The history, how this organization or business got started, that sort of thing. What is your mission? That goes there. You may also want to give your demographics, for example, what kind of clientele you serve, as well as your geography. Where in the world are you, right? Some of you are in BC, some of you are in Edmonton, etc., right? And then the statement of need. It's basically a very to the point statement that says, we need this, and that is why we're coming to you. So basically a clear statement that allows the funder to understand the value of your proposal. For these two areas, again, you're telling your story, you're being enthusiastic, and you're encouraging that person, right? Just like a commercial, to get excited about what you want, right? So next is, of course, program implementation and measurement. So basically you are talking about everything that your program idea is going to be about, how you're going to operate it, what kind of staff you need, what kind of furniture, do you need furniture? What kind of space do you need? That sort of thing. And measurement, of course, is how you're going to evaluate the success of that program that you want to start. Right? Of course, your budget and plan, of course, this is where you should have an accountant or a bookkeeper with you to fill in this part. Usually people do this on an Excel spreadsheet, and most financiers recognize those very easily. The other things is that a lot of people forget about is marketability and publicity. Of course, we are online now. We are social media people now. And they want to know, these funders want to know, how are you going to let the clientele know? I don't know if you know about warm, we've all heard about cold calling. Have you heard about warm calling? That's basically where you warm people up to your ideas before you even start. You get the word out there before you even start. You get your followers before you even start. So that's the idea behind that. And of course, marketing includes, while you're doing the program, that you're sharing successes with the world, right? That sort of thing, right? And of course, your conclusion, the closing. This is usually 1 or 2 paragraphs summarizing the key points or statements of need. So this should be, of course, again, enthusiastically written as a call to action to encourage the funder to want to fund your project. Right? And of course, the appendix is usually attachments. So you might have who's on your board, your last fiscal audit. It could include letters of intent. It could include letters of support, as well as partners. You should have letters. If you have any partners, you should be listing them and their contact information. And if they can give a letter of support, put that in the appendix, right? So yeah, that's basically the sections and explanation of all of them. So make sure, of course, that you understand all these areas. So let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to have to kind of walk you through this. You can see here that it says at the top, Boys and Girls Club sample template. Now, if we can share this with everybody, or even put it, oh yeah, I see it's in the link already. So what you can do is you can open that up. Now, I want you to just go to one certain section of this. Okay, I'm borrowing this from somewhere else, of course. And when you open it, it should say instrument and it says successful grant proposal examples, okay? The reason why I'm using this link is because you should look at other people's grant, how they wrote it, right? Especially if it's very similar to what you want. Do it, go for it. Look at other people and see what made their proposals successful, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to scroll down. You'll see 3 successful grant proposals are well organized. Keep scrolling. 4 successful grant proposals are tailored to the funder. Keep going. 5 successful grant proposals are proofread. Keep going. And you will see below that example 1, example 2, and in a one where it says successful youth grant proposals, example 1 and an example 2. And then you'll see the Boys and Girls Club of America. That's about 2/3 down where you're scrolling. Okay, so again, look for successful youth grant proposals. And then it says the Boys and Girls Club of America. I'd like you to click on that. When you click on it, you're going to see a blank page. Go to the very top right-hand corner and you'll see a little arrow inside a circle. It says show downloads when you rest your cursor on it. And then it will open it up when you click on it and it'll say Summer Brain Gain Funding Template. And when you open that up, you'll see the Boys and Girls template. So if there's anybody who can't get this open, please let us know, right? We will send this to you any way we can, of course. I'm just giving 1 second to see if there's anyone who cannot find it. So again, you scroll down to about 2/3 of the page until you find example 2, Boys and Girls Club sample template. When you click on that, it'll give you a blank page. You have to open it up. At the right top corner, you'll see a circle with an arrow. When you click on that, it will open up what says Summer Brain Gain Funding Template. Click on that and you should get a Word document. So again, is there anyone who can't get that open? Okay, hopefully that means everyone's good. So what you're seeing here is a wonderful, wonderful example of a template. You can find other grant templates online that you can use, but this one has been used literally hundreds of times and it always gets their grants. Of course, as you know, Boys and Girls Club of America of Canada is well known. They have a wonderful reputation. And of course, that helps. So there's a little secret there. One of the tips I can give you is make sure your organization or your business is well known. Make sure you have an excellent reputation in your community, in your province, even in your country, if you can go that far, right? And of course, that's what social media is all about, right? So as you can see at the top, it says insert your club's logo here. So if you have a company or an organization logo, that's where you put yours. This is your title page. That's the first thing you're seeing. And it says right in the center, a proposal requesting funds from, insert the company name, insert next to support the Boys and Girls Club of. So that's you, that's who you are, right? And then it says Brain Gain. So that's the name of the program they want to start. And they give a very brief definition right underneath. an educational summer program for ages 6 to 18. And below, you can see insert date. So that's the wonderful thing about templates. It kind of has everything there for you. You just fill it in as you go. The second page, if you scroll, is the contents. You can see on the left-hand side, executive summary, organizational background, statement of need, responding to the need, the budget, marketing, closing, and appendix. On the right-hand side is where you would put the pages. Now, of course, you do not fill this in until after you've completed your proposal. Then you go back and fill in the page numbers. The executive summary. Now, this is an example. And again, I do encourage you to look at other organizations and how they set up their proposals. And sometimes you could just ask them and they are willing to share, right? As long as they're not too competitive. So if you read through this, you can see how the Boys and Girls Club set up their executive summary. So a lot of stats make for a successful summary. So you'll see, first of all, for insert number, insert, that's the years, the number of years the Boys and Girls Club has been in operation. Specifically that specific one, so we could say Boys and Girls Club of Calgary, has been the forefront of youth development. Notice the wording that they are using. Forefront, that means strong, right? They're using very assertive, strong words right from the beginning of their executive summary. That's what you have to think about when you're writing your executive summary. We have worked with over, and then of course, stats again. So how many youth have they worked with? That's where they're putting it. And going forward, again, they're using words that are really going to entice the funder to want to help. We're going forward. We're dedicated to ensuring that all of our communities, young people, have greater access to programs that will help them shape great futures. That is a wonderful starting paragraph for an executive summary. So I would like you to take that and really consider it when you're writing your grants, that you are going to have that much excitement and those kind of action words and adjectives that really spell success right from the beginning. Be confident, right? I'm not going to read all of this, of course, but the next thing they're stating is the type of program they desperately need, right? So they're talking here about the summer program for low-income youth, right? And then they go on to the next paragraph to address this need. And then they title the name of the program they want to start, the Summer Brain Game, and what it's going to do, right? The Summer Brain Game adds engaging educational activities to the typical summer camp experience and is for ages 6 to 18. Very specific, right? And again, they're using those power words that are going to sell their proposal. So that's what you really, again, I have to encourage you to do that, right? At the bottom, the next paragraph, to maximize our impact over the summer, Boys and Girls Club of blank is requesting funding to implement. Notice how specific this paragraph is. They're saying when, they're saying who, they're saying how they want or who they want the money from, and exactly how much money they want. This is the most important sentence in your proposal. So make sure it's written well. I'm going to give you more examples of this coming up, right? Okay, so now we're going to just keep on moving down to the organizational background. And so we are basically, you can see that this is the organizational background. I'll bet you any money if you go on any website for the Boys and Girls Club, it'll be very similar. The next page, of course, is a graph. Use graphs, use pictures in your proposal. Don't get too crazy though. Be very specific. And as you can see, this basically has stats which can show the impact that they're going to have. Next is a statement of need. Again, it's only a few paragraphs. And again, it's very specific. So it's only to that one program that they're asking for funding, okay? And then again, responding to the need. So this is again, their operations, how they're going to do it. I want to point out the bullet points. What is the nature? So these what are the main implementation challenges? What are the stakeholders' perceptions? Hopefully you see those bullets that I'm referring to. Notice they're all questions. So they're going to answer these questions in their proposal. That's what they're going to do. Okay, now we're going to keep going. The implementation and measurement is basically they're going to state how they're going to do this. Notice on the second paragraph, the last sentence says, data is collected and tracked on indicators such as how frequently youth attend and include any other data. So this is where you are showing your funder how you are going to evaluate the success, because they want to know that as well. Next, of course, is the budget. This one's written out, but again, you can use Excel if you want to. Professional fees, supplies, equipment, traveling, telephone bills, photocopying, even postage stamps are included in this. And then of course, the grand total at the end. After that, they have the marketing and their publicity plan, right? So they're going to use the website, e-newsletters, flyers. They will probably contact members as well to ensure that this program is getting out there. They will contact schools to let schools know. And the last thing, of course, is the appendix. And in theirs, they are including the annual report, the board of directors, and any other important club information that they feel is important. Here they also have endnotes. So again, this is just basic reviews, testimonials, any articles that they have that shows their success. So feel free to look at that in more detail on your own, because I'd like to continue on with what our session's all about. So the next section that we're going to go to is the best practices. That's the next slide. So yeah, I'm just going to, each sentence is kind of a new slide, so you can just keep pressing the button for me. Thanks, Michelle. So basically, proofread. Make sure you proofread. I have a dad who was a manager, and he would throw away anything that had a typo. So research other projects and their grants, because they are knowledgeable. They have the experience. Keep going. Ensure the realistic time schedule. Make sure you have a checklist of all expectations that the funder wants from your application and that you meet all of those checklists. Tailor your grant proposal specifically for each funder. Yes, go ahead and ask many funders, but make sure it's tailored, right? Make sure it's doable, realistic, and has clear outcomes. Keep going. And also go beyond. Let the funder see what you're all about. Hear from others. So like I said, the testimonials, get the word out. Let the funders know that you are already a successful organization. That's the best commercial you can have. Next, please. And of course, you are detailed. Notice that the boys and girls template was very short but specific, but had the right detail and the right amount of detail. You do not have to be wordy, right? And next. And of course, your proposal creates a visually appealing proposal in formatting, in the title page, in pictures that you include, or graphs or charts. If you notice, the Boys and Girls Club was very nicely formatted and looked very professional. Next. Provide support with your partnerships and also include your own team, who you are, right? And of course, the call to action. You want your funder to support your project, and so make sure that call to action is there. Next. And this is what I was telling you about SMART. If you don't know what SMART is, it's basically an acronym for being specific, being measurable, being attainable, being relevant, and being timely. So specific, your proposal is going to say who, what, where, when, why, and which. Your measurable is going to say from September to January, you know, that kind of thing. Attainable means how are you going to reach that goal? And relevant, why is this goal important? Why is our proposal important? And of course, timely. You will complete this in a certain amount of time, right? So that's basically a very quick explanation of SMART, right? You can find SMART on the internet if you need to look it up a little bit more, right? And next. Here's the example of a summary of your most important line in your proposal. The goal for this project is for the Edmonton Little League District to provide 1,000 baseball uniforms to children throughout Edmonton from May 1st, 2022 to August 31st, 2022. So basically, using the SMART acronym, this states everything that the funder needs to know in one sentence. And again, it's an important part of the executive summary and the statement of need. Next. So yes, I was kind of rushing that last part because I realized the time, but does anyone have any questions or statements or thoughts or any other tips that you wanted to add?
I think you gave us lots to chew on, lots to think. You're like very, very thorough, very enthusiastic. So thank you so much. But yeah, we do have but a couple of moments left. If anyone has any questions, we would love. Okay, so Shannon.
Oh, great. Is there any way to get this presentation? I am very okay with this being shared. So if Elsie, if you wanted to email the participants the presentation, go right ahead.
Awesome, thank you. Kate has a question. Hi, Kate. Is in the chat box, is there a different way of looking at grant requests if it's for a profit entity?
Yes, yes and no, actually. Most proposals are very much alike. I have written for both corporation and nonprofit, as well as my own businesses. And I find that the format is very similar, right? So I hope that answers what you mean by a different way. If not, I'm going to put my email here. And you are more than welcome to have a chat with me by getting hold of me, and I can fill you in or help anyone with any of the sections of your proposal or any part you're stuck on, right? So I'm more than willing to help you with that.
Wow, that's very generous, Teresa. Okay, so I kept the PowerPoint on because I wasn't sure if your contact information was up there, but she put it in the chat box. So I believe. So take note of her email, take note of that offer. So shoot Teresa any questions. And also this PowerPoint will be sent to you all, I believe, if you request it, right, Elsie, or does it automatically go to everybody?
Right, and when you send the presentation, again, that's another way you can send my email.
Oh, perfect, great, there we go. Okay, we got time for one last question, if anyone has a question. I loved how you brought up the SMART goals. I'm a huge believer in having and setting those SMART goals.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, even with business plans, you name it. SMART is the smart way to go.
100%.
I just came up with that.
Okay, well, I feel like you've given us a lot this afternoon. So thank you for sharing your knowledge. Again, you were very enthusiastic. I thoroughly enjoyed what you had to share because I could hear your enthusiasm behind it. So thank you so much for bringing what you know. And it was a great presentation. You really helped us. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. You know, we actually have one more day till April. I jumped the gun, Shannon, because earlier on I said, oh, it's the last day in March. We got one more day in March. Let's just make the most of every moment, every day that the Creator has given to us, you know, and tap into these resources. You know, I loved that you said just Google, you know, if there's something that you're doing in your community, you know, type it in Google and see if there's any funding options out there for you. I think that also, you know, so simple, but sometimes we overlook the simple stuff. Yeah. All right, so have a good rest of the day, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again. And just be well, walk in a good way. So all my relations, I just honor you and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Be well.
And thank you to everybody as well.